Ferrari arrived in Hungary with a car fast enough to fight at the front. Lewis Hamilton qualified second. Charles Leclerc remained close to the podium. The pace was real. Then one penalty changed the entire weekend. Hamilton was dropped 3 grid places for impeding Oscar Piastri, forcing Ferrari into traffic, pressure, and a race it could no longer control. By the finish, Leclerc was 4th, Hamilton was 5th, and one brutal question remained. Did Ferrari lose Hungary because of the penalty, or because the team failed to protect its strongest opportunity? The answer is far more serious than it first appears. Subscribe to the channel. To understand why that penalty carried so much weight, we have to return to Friday, when Ferrari looked like the team to beat. Lewis Hamilton finished first in the second practice session. Charles Leclerc finished second. A Ferrari won too, on a circuit where confidence can disappear in a single mistake. That result immediately changed the mood around the team. The Hungaroring is narrow, technical, and extremely difficult to overtake on. One corner flows into the next, leaving drivers almost no time to recover when something goes wrong. A small mistake can damage an entire section of the lap. A moment of hesitation can cost several positions. And because passing is so difficult, qualifying becomes one of the most important parts of the entire weekend. That made Ferrari's Friday performance impossible to dismiss. The car looked stable through the slow and medium speed corners. The front responded when Hamilton and Leclerc turned the steering wheel. The rear remained calmer when they applied the power. For once, Ferrari did not look like a team searching for a solution. It looked like a team that had already found one. The high downforce package appeared perfectly suited to Budapest. In simple terms, the car was creating the grip needed to remain connected to the track through the long sequence of corners. Think of trying to run across a polished floor. You may have all the strength in the world, but without grip, that strength becomes useless. Ferrari finally looked connected to the surface. Hamilton could commit. Leclerc could attack. And when both drivers trust the car at the same time, the entire weekend begins to feel different. A predictable car gives the driver confidence. Confidence allows later braking. Confidence allows more speed through the corner. Confidence allows the driver to attack instead of waiting for the car to make a mistake. Hamilton had that confidence. Leclerc had it too. Suddenly, Ferrari was not only thinking about scoring points. A front row start looked possible. A podium looked realistic. And if everything worked perfectly, even a fight at the very front no longer seemed impossible. But Fred Vasseur refused to celebrate. He recognized that the balance looked good. He also admitted that Ferrari's competitiveness had surprised him. Still, he warned that Friday would not decide the weekend. Saturday would matter more. Sunday would matter most. At the time, those words sounded cautious. By the end of the weekend, they sounded prophetic, because practice never reveals the entire picture. Teams can run different fuel loads. Engine settings can vary. Traffic can destroy one driver's lap and make another driver appear stronger. A red flag can interrupt the longer runs before anyone fully understands the real race pace. Ferrari had seen enough to believe the speed was genuine, but it had not seen enough to feel completely safe. And that difference was crucial. A car can be exceptional for one lap when the tires are fresh and the fuel load is lighter. Then the race begins. The fuel changes the balance. The tires begin to heat. The grip slowly moves away from the driver. The same car that felt sharp in qualifying can become much harder to control across a full race. It is the difference between sprinting across a room and running several miles. The first challenge is about speed. The second is about control. Ferrari knew it had speed. What the team still needed to prove was whether that speed could survive Sunday. That made qualifying even more important. At the Hungaroring, starting near the front gives a driver more than clean air. It gives control. There are fewer cars ahead. There's less danger of becoming trapped in traffic. The team can choose its own strategy instead of reacting to everyone else. Hamilton appeared to have secured exactly that advantage. He qualified second. For a brief moment, Ferrari had everything it needed. A fast car, a confident driver, a front row position, a realistic path toward the podium. Then the stewards intervened. Hamilton was judged to have unnecessarily impeded Oscar Piastri during the final part of qualifying. The punishment was 3 grid positions. Second became 5th. At another circuit, that might have been manageable. In Hungary, it changed the entire shape of the race. Hamilton did not only lose 3 positions. He lost clean air. He lost strategic freedom. He lost the ability to attack from the front row. And most importantly, he lost control. Every car ahead became another obstacle. Another driver could slow him through the corners. Another team could stop early and force Ferrari to react. Another battle could overheat the tires. Another lap in traffic could erase the advantage Ferrari had worked all weekend to create. The penalty did not make the car slower. It made the speed much harder to use. That was the cruel part. Ferrari had finally found a package that appeared capable of fighting near the front. Hamilton had delivered the qualifying position. Leclerc was still competitive. The opportunity was already there. And before the race had even started, that opportunity had been pushed onto a much more dangerous path. But the penalty was only the first layer. Because once Hamilton started fifth, Ferrari's race stopped being about pure speed. It became a fight against traffic, tire temperature, strategy, and pressure. And one lost position was about to create several more. Editor. Once Hamilton started from fifth, the penalty became more than a grid change. It became the structure of his entire race. From second, he could have attacked immediately. He could have used clean air. He could have protected the tires. He could have forced the cars behind to respond to Ferrari. From fifth, everything was reversed. When one car follows another closely, the airflow becomes less stable. The front of the car loses grip. The tires begin to work harder. The driver must push more aggressively just to remain close. But that creates another problem. The harder Hamilton pushed to prepare an attack, the more he risked damaging the tires he needed to complete that attack. That was the contradiction. To overtake, he needed to stay close. But staying close could make the Ferrari slower. Ferrari now had to solve a problem with no perfect answer. The team could stop Hamilton early and try to release him into cleaner air. But that would create a longer final stint. The tires would need to survive for more laps. If they lost performance too soon, any early advantage could disappear before the finish. Ferrari could leave him out longer. That might protect the tires and create a different strategic opportunity. But every extra lap in traffic risked losing more time to the cars ahead. There was no safe choice. Only risk, and Hamilton was not Ferrari's only concern. Leclerc was still close enough to fight for the podium. That meant the team had two completely different races to manage at the same time. Hamilton needed recovery. Leclerc needed protection. Hamilton needed Ferrari to create movement. Leclerc needed Ferrari to preserve position. One driver needed risk. The other needed control. And when both cars need different things, every decision becomes more complicated. A pit stop for one driver can affect the traffic for the other. A defensive call can reduce attacking options. A delayed stop can protect one position while exposing another. Ferrari had two competitive cars, but it did not have one simple race. It had two moving problems, both connected to tire life, traffic, and McLaren's decisions. And that gave McLaren something more valuable than a small advantage in pace. It gave McLaren control. The cars ahead could manage their tires. They could watch Ferrari. They could react to Ferrari's stops. They could protect their position without taking the biggest risk. Ferrari had to move first. And when the team behind moves first, the team ahead receives more information. It can respond immediately. It can stay out longer. It can protect track position. It can force the chasing team to prove that its decision will work. Ferrari had speed. McLaren had freedom. And in a close race, freedom is often more powerful. Hamilton could still push. Leclerc could still remain close to the podium. But Ferrari needed something to break the pattern. A perfectly timed stop. A clean gap in traffic. A mistake from a rival. A moment that changed the order. That moment never arrived strongly enough. And this is where the frustration became impossible to ignore. Hamilton knew the car was competitive. He had felt it on Friday. He had qualified second before the penalty. He knew what Ferrari could do in clean conditions. But Sunday was no longer giving him those conditions. The performance was still inside the car. The race was preventing him from using it. That is one of the hardest situations for a driver to accept. When the car is slow, the explanation is simple. The team needs more speed. When the car is fast, every lost opportunity feels avoidable. Could the traffic have been escaped earlier? Could the strategy have created more clean air? Could the tires have been protected differently? Could Ferrari have reacted faster? Each question creates another one. And every answer leads back to the same uncomfortable truth. Ferrari had arrived in Hungary with enough pace to fight for more than fourth and fifth. But the team never recovered the control it lost before the race began. Leclerc eventually finished fourth. Hamilton finished fifth. Those positions looked respectable. They did not reflect the full opportunity. That was what made the results so painful. Ferrari had not watched the podium disappear from a distance. It had been close enough to believe it belonged there. The difference was not a complete lack of speed. It was the ability to execute when the race became complicated. McLaren handled those moments more effectively. Ferrari did not. And this is where the weekend became bigger than Hamilton's penalty. Formula One is not won by speed alone. It is won by combining speed with timing, communication, tire management, and track position. One weakness can damage everything around it. A lower starting position creates traffic. Traffic increases tire stress. Tire stress limits strategy. Limited strategy gives the rival more control. And more control allows the rival to protect the result. Nothing happened alone. Every problem strengthened the next one. By the time Ferrari needed a final response, the race had already been shaped by everything that came before. That is why Hamilton's frustration after the race mattered so much. He was not leaving Hungary after a weekend without hope. He was leaving after a weekend where hope had been real. The car had worked. The pace had appeared. The front row had been there. Then the opportunity disappeared in stages. First came the penalty. Then came the traffic. Then came the loss of strategic freedom. Then came the growing advantage for the cars already ahead. No single moment looked large enough to explain everything. Together, they decided the race. That is how some of the most painful defeats happen. Not with smoke. Not with a broken engine. Not with one dramatic collapse. They happen quietly. A position lost here. A lap delayed there. A tire pushed slightly too hard. A rival reacting a little faster. By the time the result appears, the race has already been lost in pieces. Ferrari did not suddenly become slow. Ferrari slowly became trapped. And once that happened, the speed that had looked so powerful on Friday could no longer rescue Sunday. But the deepest warning was still ahead, because Hungary may have proved that Ferrari had found genuine performance. It may also have proved that performance means very little when the team cannot protect it under pressure.